I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love the suit.
It's probably A minor.
The biggest waste of my god. I can't fake it. I can't fake it. That was ass.
Yo, Drake, my brother, I think you're not reading the room here. You just went through one of the most horrifying rap battles of life. I do kind of look at Drake like, bad timing again.
Era where all of Lawbree's music friends turned against him, only 3 super glazers were able to save the day. Snack-a-diddler.
Those 3 Big Macs are for
Meat-munching Maul.
I'm some OVO, dick-riding, Drake-caping
and repugnant Rory. Aubrey's Avengers, coming to a theater near you.
Lawbrees and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbree in Gentleland, while Cole and Kendrick clearly carried on from the Big 3 battle, the only one latching on to the beef like a cattle is the sad damsel in distress, the sexy red stepsister Tupac, back with a new pack of petitions printed for UMG and for you and me to see. You thought Drake was done suing over a diss? He'd be remiss to not double back after his case was dismissed. So dim your lights, get your popcorn, let's look at Lawbree lollygagging again, but before we begin, spin the block on the like and subscribe buttons for your friend, Rapaholics.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.
Now, Lawbrees and Gentlegrams, just as it felt like the world was moving on, it was a new year. We are entering into a new chapter. New music, new artists started making their way through the airwaves. We just had that A$AP Rocky project. J. Cole felt like he kind of did a little reset on his own career and on hip-hop as a whole by announcing that his long-anticipated Fall Off album is dropping next month.
I begged my mom every day for a beat machine. Every day for like a year and a half. And when I was 15, she made it happen, and she got this thing right here. It's my very first beat machine. I know y'all use Fruity Loops. I'm on Logic. Nobody's using analog things anymore, but this was the first thing in like the year 2000. It's a sampler. It don't come with barely no sounds, and I had to figure out how to use this. And that's when I started making my own beats, writing my own songs. It all started on this machine right here.
Don Toliver just announced his new project as well. Everyone was kind of happy with the idea that the Kendrick and Drake battle no longer felt like a thought in the back of your head with every new music drop or piece of news that came out. I mean, hell, even my channel, you guys always said Drake paid my rent. Drake hasn't been paying the rent over here in months. I haven't made a Drake video in ages. Ironically, the only time I've ever talked about him over the last few months is when he's roped into a new lawsuit, or when his little minion Top 5 came out of the woodworks to say that Drake is a fingernail painting weirdo, and the whole time Top 5 loved Not Like Us, but he could only sing it in the shower to hide it from Drake.
Does Drake know you guys aren't seen eye to eye?
He knows, bro. I talk to him every day. So when I woke up this morning and I seen him, I'm like, yo, honestly, for years and years, I've been only listening to Not Like Us in my washroom with my headphones. Let me go public today. I like that record.
No, wait, you're not listening to Not Like Us. That's the first time I think you actually listened to the song.
You know the part I like the most? But you know that part where it says, chubs, with the heavy, that's facts.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, five. Well, hold on. I hate to break the fourth wall. So I know sometimes y'all have these little disagreements and then y'all fix it up or whatever. We all live. Don't say nothing that it's always going to be used against you.
So yeah, ultimately, guys, it's been 2 calendar years since the beef ended. You would have expected Drake to move on at this point, right? Kendrick is out here doing stadium tours. He had the highest selling rap album of 2025 and 2024 with GNX.
I study
Kendrick
for a living.
Kendrick just opened his mouth, and I'm about to put my dick in it right now.
J. Cole is about to put out what could be his final project ever, and seems to be focusing more on crafting an album that speaks to the entirety of his career, reflecting on everything front to back. I'm sure there'll be a couple moments where he speaks on, his involvement in the beef, but A, we already got that with Port Antonio, and B, I don't think that's going to be the main focus of this mission that he has with the Fall Off, right? Kendrick as well has also spoken on his thoughts about the beef. He did that interview with Apple Music where he emphasized that the whole purpose of him even jumping out the gate with Like That was to kind of bring back the spirit of competition within the genre.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
And aside from that interview, Kendrick also gave us songs like Watch the Party Die, Whacked Out Murals, where he's speaking on different events that happened because of the beef and kind of how he plans on moving forward. The only one who hasn't really given us a clear-cut explanation behind how they feel about the aftermath of the beef, how they felt going into the battle, and how they want to move forward is Drake.
Oh, you're a culture vulture, or like, you know, yeah, man. Oh, y'all, man, for real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man, for real, man. People will describe the collaborative efforts that I've put forth and the artists that I've picked up and lifted up, or shine a light on as me taking, you know.
I was ahead of my time with the way I was able to get my publishing business together with Drake. So I had to wait for the public to catch up to the fact that, no, this dude Drake was lying. Drake's called Sean a lie, but really Sean was telling the truth. It's very much true. And Drake said it was fake. So I had to let his fandom die down so people to be able to see, like, bro, dude was telling the truth. If he wouldn't have came out and said I was lying in that moment, I probably would have got a chance to write a whole lot of more records for a lot of individuals. Drake definitely uses our culture to be able to win.
They'll put a negative spin on it and try and tell me, you know, that it's a self-serving thing or whatever. And I think I get really sensitive about that.
And I was looking at that. If you're reading this moment, it's just crazy how the best moment of my life, you know, after a tweet turned into like one of the most stressful moments of my life, you know?
Yeah, sure, he's given us a couple tracks, sneak dissing people like LeBron, Kendrick himself, Joe Budden, but I mean, you could basically summarize Drake's entire perspective of the outcome of this beef by two separate songs. Number one, the Fighting Irish freestyle, and Give Me a Hug. Fighting Irish, he basically chalks the entire beef and Kendrick's victory lap up to being one big gimmicky clown show that the world fell in love with, and on Give Me a Hug, he reflected on where the state of hip-hop would be if he truly got dethroned by essentially stating that girls in the strip club would have nothing to twerk to if Drake is not the one supplying all the hits.
What the f are they gonna do with it? Had the girls up at 29 on stage twerking with a dictionary.
That's Drake's response to this entire situation so far. On What Did I Miss as well. The whole premise of this is, my friends turned against me, they fell in love with a clown show, and if that clown show truly takes over, then all the strippers will have nothing to twerk to. He hasn't done an interview, he hasn't dropped any meaningful music. The only place where we've really seen Drake's true feelings behind this battle is through the frickin' courtroom, and today is no different, Lobries and Gentlegrams.
I study
courtrooms
for a living.
Basically, if you guys haven't been keeping up, Drake filed that lawsuit against his record label, UMG, for the promotion and just release of the song Not Like Us, claiming that they threatened his safety and damaged his reputation on purpose by artificially inflating the numbers and the popularity behind the songs and leveraging their connections within the industry to have that song be blasted on the Grammy stage and the Super Bowl stage to just destroy Drake.
I want to make a move. I want to perform their favorite song. But you know they love the suit.
What song? Yeah, that song.
All I ever wanted was a black grand national. Black grand national.
Black grand national.
The judge actually threw the case out, essentially telling Drake, hey, you can't sue them for defamation because the song was part of a rap battle you willingly participated in, so we gotta judge it under that context. And when we're reviewing the song as what it is, rap lyrics, then we come to understand that the statements made in Not Like Us were Kendrick Lamar's opinion. And someone's opinion can't actually be labeled as defamation because it wasn't like Kendrick Lamar was stating anything as fact. The judge
studies rap battles for a living.
Now here we are, a year removed from Drake actually first filing this lawsuit and almost 2 years removed from the battle actually taking place. And Drake has officially filed an appellant, where he makes the argument that this case should not have been thrown out. The judge was wrong in her decision and lists a bunch of reasons why his accusations are valid, which is that UMG again used bots and fake streams and illegal business practices to artificially boost the popularity of the song, and that the song itself is defamatory towards Drake's character as it quote-unquote accuses him of being a PDF.
Yo, shout out to all the 12-year-olds in the building. What's up?
Now remember the ugly precedent that it would set if Drake's actually allowed to take this thing to trial, and even worse, if he wins, right? This compromises freedom of speech as we know it, rap battles as we know them, and definitely puts a hindrance on what artists can say going forward within their music. So it's a very big deal. And with this dark, scary situation popping its head back out, I think we first need to look at some positive things. And that's why I have some great news for you guys today. If you're like me and you spend way too much time on your phone, you'll now be able to make real money just by playing games. Huh? Yes, with Playful. It's an app that essentially gives you points for completing levels on certain games or filling out surveys about certain games. You can then redeem those points for real cash or gift cards, and Playful might be the best program for this type of stuff because A, it's super easy. All you gotta do is scan the QR code you see on the screen or click the link in the description, download the app, and you'll see a bunch of different games that you can start making money by playing, and they might be the biggest app that does this type of stuff for you guys because they've paid out over $30 million to different gamers, and they have almost 5 stars on the App Store with over 50,000 reviews. All you gotta do to start earning money by playing games is, again, scan the QR code you see on the screen or check the link in my description, sign up to Playful, pick a challenge you know you'll crush, and then let's make some money. Now, you know what's crazy to me is the fact that you got guys like Fat Joe who are on their podcast talking about how J. Cole can never be viewed the same again because he apologized and backed out of this battle. Meanwhile, Drake suffers no consequences for doing something 10 times worse, right? Participating in it, then suing over it. Shout out to Wayno for making that point initially. And on a side note, Wayno has got to be one of my favorite creators in the space right now. I used to watch him all the time on Everyday Struggle, so I love that he's doing his own thing now, and he's putting out like 3 videos, 4 videos every day. I suggest you guys check out his channel if you've never seen it. But yeah, he brought this up in the sense that, like, yes, it'd be messed up to hear J. Cole talking about, you know, no MC can touch me, I'm the best, your favorite rapper's neck is in a noose. But at the same time, to make a stupid claim like, you know, it was irredeemable what he did and like he can never come back and bring us music and be looked at in the same light again because he apologized. When on the other hand, you're embracing Drake with open arms, saying how excited you are for Iceman. The double standard is crazy.
Drake is going to be coming out with an album soon.
I believe it'll be incredible. He's one of my favorite artists.
So after everything he's been through, do you think this needs to be like the album of the year?
Will be, because you gotta understand, Drake been running and gunning, putting out #1 hits for like, I think 15 years. This album right here took him like a good year or 2 to do, so it's gonna be phenomenal.
Think everyone's going to give him love when it comes out?
For sure, that's Drake, one of the biggest artists in the history of hip-hop music. Let's go, Six God.
I understand not being able to look at J. Cole the same after apologizing, but to say that you never want to hear from him again, you never want to listen to his music. If you were a J. Cole fan before the battle and you're boycotting any of his future music because of the crappy moves he made in the battle, you probably have to get your head checked, alright? It's not that deep. But what is that deep is how deep Drake has gone down this rabbit hole of really setting legal precedent over how rap battles can be viewed in the future with this lawsuit. So if you want to talk someone being boycotted after this battle, someone who has irredeemably tarnished their legacy over this battle, that's not J. Cole. You're looking at La Brianna.
You said J. Cole. I don't look at him the same. He ain't come outside. Sometimes you tell me, Joe, you want the 100 million, this, that, you got to say the truth. I don't look at him the same. The fucking sword is dull. I don't care what he spit. Because I've been listening to him spitting. I always said he's one of the greatest. And all that is irrelevant to me when you talking all that gangster shit and they call you to the yard and you don't step outside. I can't look at you. That's like you seeing the dude who they always told you, and you know, you always thought he was tough. And you see some other kingpin nigga, some smack his cheek off and the nigga, my bad, and walk off. I'm keeping it a buck with you.
So after everything he's been through, do you think this needs to be like the album of the year?
Will be.
Think everyone's going to give him love when it comes out?
For sure. That's Drake, one of the biggest artists in the history of hip-hop music. That's how I look at the
music,
shit.
Man. The music is great.
I don't give a fuck if you lose. I never forget Everlast and Eminem. Everlast definitely knew he couldn't beat Eminem, but he came outside to the yard. He came outside. And so that's just how I look at it. Big up J. Cole, the whole crew, North Carolina and all that, but he caught stage fright. Supposed to come outside, man. He did.
He did, man.
All right.
Bowed out gracefully, but that don't never mean he wasn't. I mean, where we come from, all call outs.
What they say in the Game of Thrones, what they say, the North never forgets. Remember when the Starks come? They got the North never forgets.
Think everyone's gonna give him love when it comes out?
For sure, that's Drake, one of the biggest artists. You're not waiting 6 months to let the smoke clear to come back outside and talk legendary and all that. Like, it's like the North never forgets.
Into that, he just ended what he into.
All right.
The new
Coming
shit,
from you,
shit is crazy.
you go to war. Jadakiss go to war. Jadakiss go to war. The Locks go to war. I'm a J. Cole fan. I'm just telling you, they don't hit me as tough. You know what I'm saying? If Fat Joe talking all that Fat Joe the gangster, there's a video of me getting my face smacked off. You ain't gonna hear Flo Joe the same. You gonna be like, man, and that was your face smacked off in public. Was like, yo, and he said, no, I rescind it. I'm coming back. No, I didn't mean it.
So after everything he's been through, do you think this needs to be like the album of the year, album of his career?
It will be. You know when you riding bike and then you do the pedal backwards, the shit pedals backwards?
Roll back.
That's what he did. He rolled back, brother. You know when the fucking 10-speed be going tick, 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 tick? Yo, you know when you hear this shit? No, you hear the tick, tick? The tick, 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 tick. You know when your shit go back?
Yeah, but when you roll that shit back with the metal pedals and that scrape up your shins.
Kill you.
Oof.
Now, let me make things clear. I'm not saying that J. Cole had no tarnish to his legacy after jumping out of that battle, but I don't think the outcome should be, I don't like how J. Cole handled this battle, so I'll never listen to his music again. If anyone's gonna feel that type of energy, it should be Drake for persistently pushing these petty petitions, which we will break down very shortly. But just to put a whole bow on this J. Cole-Drake argument, how we can perceive them going forward, I think Charlemagne kind of summarized it perfectly. It's not that we can't enjoy Cole's music, it's not that Cole won't make amazing music with the fall off. It's just that in regards to the whole Big Three conversation, after Cole's decision to apologize, the rankings have never been more clear.
Nobody ever screwed J. Cole's head off the Big Three. The reality is there is no Big Three no more. Because when the Big Three was supposed to engage, only two of them decided to engage. J. Cole engaged, and then he backed away. And so it was two. And then after the two, one reigned supreme, and we know who that was, Mr. Kendrick Lamar.
You know, J. Cole bowed out of that battle, right? You're an MC. You're supposed to be ready for any type of smoke. Now, that doesn't take away his pen. It doesn't take away his catalog. It doesn't take away his consistency. But when it came to that battle, when it came to see who was number one during that time, he bowed out.
When he drops the fall off is probably going to be dope. We all know J. Cole can rap his ass off, and he can be your personal favorite. But when it comes to being number one, no, that's not going to happen. I don't think there's no Big Three no more, period. As Kendrick said, there's no Big Three, it's just Big Me. Now, if you just want to be technical and say who have been the best of the last 15 years, yes that is still the three. But there's a clear number one, and his name is Kendrick Lamar. And I still got Drake at 2, and then Cole would be 3.
Honestly, when it's all said and done, what's really going to be interesting is the fact that ever since the battle happened, we haven't really heard a solo effort from the Big Three, quote unquote, except for Kendrick Lamar, right? Like, he gave us GNX. Cole is about to give us the Fall Off, which has been, in the making for 10 years. And then Laubrian has been teasing Iceman ever since this beef ended. And if Kendrick, plans on dropping a surprise tape or something this year, we may see the first year in history where we get a project from all of these rappers. I guess 2016 kind of counts if you count, Kendrick's Untitled Unmastered. So it's only right that 10 years later they continue that trend. And I think it will speak to, who really has the baton right now once we actually unpack each of their first solo efforts after the beef. Now, when it comes to Drake,
spicy.
This lawsuit was kind of an essential theme to his Iceman rollout. If you guys remember the 3 live streams that he did, the whole concept was him carrying this mysterious bag that was deemed to be the big red button that would expose everything. And he was being chased by these Pinocchio characters who were kind of meant to resemble puppets within the industry, right? Since the whole premise of his lawsuit is centered around UMG using Kendrick as a puppet to sabotage Drake's reputation. And remember on Taylor Made, he also mentioned something like, I'm tired of you corporate industry puppets, I'm not in the mood. The last Iceman episode he gave us, not only did it flop commercially, like no one really appreciated the music that he put forth on it, but in terms of the storyline, it was still around the time when his lawsuit hadn't been thrown in the trash by the judge, right? So the storyline within the live stream were these, Pinocchio guys chasing Drake for the bag that he's holding. They finally, catch him red-handed, and he basically loses possession of the bag. Now, if these episodes are supposed to follow some, consistent storyline, in that case, the lawsuit actually plays a role in what we see go down in these episodes, because the whole thing about the episodes is Drake exposing the industry. In order to expose the industry, he's got to go through that discovery phase of his lawsuit and actually find real information tied to, them using bots on Not Like Us, them rigging the Grammys or paying the radio stations or doing something shady behind the scenes to prove that, big powers above Kendrick Lamar were actually involved in tarnishing Drake's reputation through the battle. If you ask me, UMG would not be stupid enough to purposely destroy one of their biggest artists, who they're making arguably the most amount ever from his back catalog, in order to renegotiate a new contract with Drake on better terms for UMG. I don't think that necessarily makes sense. This is your cash cow. Why would you want to destroy your cash cow, right? So this whole thing to me is stupid, but again, it does fit into the entire theme of the storyline that Drake has been rolling out over the last few months. So he kind of needs this lawsuit to go forward to actually conclude the story of the Iceman or the Spice Man.
Spicy.
And ultimately, Drake is just desperate to win this lawsuit because he needs to show the world, hey, look, I'm still the numbers guy. There's no way that Kendrick Lamar dissed me and created a bigger hit than I've had in the last 10 years. There's no way people actually like this song as much as they do. It was all UMG manipulating the numbers. Now, people on both sides are very divided on Drake bringing this lawsuit back to light, right? This guy says Drake is playing chess with UMG. Drake and UMG know he's the biggest hip-hop artist by far based on the numbers, fan base, and every other metric. UMG wants the Iceman album released and this lawsuit to go away. Drake is likely leveraging all this into some sort of deal. Does this make sense to you guys? Let me know in the comments. I think what they're referring to is obviously how UMG was kind of manipulating the numbers of Not Like Us, right? The fake streams. Well, what's actually interesting is Billboard, the website that publishes the charts and the numbers every single week, they had their staff actually speak about the lawsuit, but they didn't go too into detail about, the ramifications of exposing if there was fake streams or bots on the song, right? They were more so reflecting on, is this or is this not defamation? When Kendrick said certified lover boy, certified PDF, was he making a statement of fact that Drake is a PDF? And if so, should that mean that Drake can sue over these lyrics?
Now, here we are heading into 2026, and Drake is appealing the case, not letting it die. You can discuss the PR angle of it till you're blue in the face. But he has an interesting legal case, which is the big question is, did the average listener think that, that Kendrick was really calling him a pedophile? Was he saying, you are a pedophile? Or was he saying, some more amorphous, hyperbolic thing? And I think a lot of people would say that he was just calling him a pedophile. And that's what Drake's lawyers are going to argue, which is that there are big First Amendment reasons for why you want to be really light touch with bringing defamation lawsuits in against works of art. But that in this context, maybe people really took it as a direct statement of fact. That's what they're going to argue before the appeals court. And we'll see how that goes.
Now, to me, what gets tricky about this whole thing is the fact that Drake had asked Kendrick Lamar to use this insult against him on Tailor-Made Freestyle, right? And it was already a growing narrative in the media years prior to Kendrick releasing Not Like Us. Did Kendrick Lamar amplify the idea in mainstream America that Drake is a PDF? Possibly, but that's only because you'd hear the song, you'd hear Kendrick, cracking these jokes, writing these bars the same way Drake made allegations towards Kendrick Lamar. They were participating in a rap battle. That's why the context is important. And to someone who maybe didn't know much about Drake's past, then they could go online and see where these rumors actually stem from. Kendrick wasn't making a statement of a fact, but he was referencing rumors that had already existed long before the battle took place, and he was just referencing them in a more exaggerated, hyperbolic way. Now, whether or not this song actually led you to believe Drake is a PDF, I think this person has the best kind of outlook on this entire thing. What's crazy is Drake's poor sportsmanship going to court over a rap beef and general crying over getting embarrassed in a beef that he provoked for a decade is having way more of a negative impact on his legacy and with his fans than being called a PDF or the photos and videos of him kissing A minors, leaving hard eyes under their IG pics, sitting with them in his lap and taking them on dates. Folks were happy to overlook and make excuses for all that stuff. This is the stuff they're actually disgusted by. So this person is saying, like, throughout all the years of all these rumors accumulating, it's really Drake that's doing the most harm on his own reputation by not letting the world forget about this song and everything that came with it. And you gotta ask yourself, what does Drake actually want out of this lawsuit? Like, what's the prize if he actually wins, right? We'll get to it when we actually review his appeal, but I thought this guy's comment was interesting. Why does Drake want this song down so badly? Every time he talks about it, it rises again on the charts. Just leave it alone, man. And it got me thinking, is that what Drake wants? Like, does he want to win this lawsuit so that the song could be taken down from streaming platforms? Is that the end goal? Because surely if you're delusional enough to think that a judge is going to rule the song as defamation, then you would also be logical enough to think that the next course of action would be to remove the song off the internet, right? If it really was proven in a court of law to be defamatory, that means we got to wipe that clean off the internet. And that alone would be a crazy precedent if we start deleting songs off streaming platforms because they hurt other artists' feelings. And if you want to talk the precedent that this lawsuit sets, I think this guy had a really good kind of outlook on how things would go if this lawsuit does turn out in Drake's favor and how it can actually negatively impact Drake's own career if his own lyrics start being used against him.
Drake is suing his own lyrics. No, really. Watch this. So Drake is appealing a lawsuit that messes with how speech gets used in court. Sounds smart. It's not. If he wins, he proves words matter enough to be dangerous. Guess whose career is words? Congratulations, you just turned your own catalog into homework for lawyers. That is not protection. That is high definition evidence. But if he loses, nothing changes. Lyrics still get used. Freedom of speech, patterns still matter, basically the same ending. You can't spend over a decade saying my words are real and personal and authentic, and then tell a judge, actually, words shouldn't be taken like that. Pick one. Someone tell him that the courts run on receipts and not vibes, please. Win or lose, the same thing happens. The lyrics don't just disappear, they get organized. Does he know that he has one of the most incriminating catalogs? Here's my Kanye impression. Of all time. The sad part is that he thinks he's changing the rules, like the court only works one way, when he's literally making playlists easier to search. It's only entertainment purposes when you do it, or did you not say you're living your raps? Alright, you can say I took that one out of context. Well, what about this one? Where he enjoys losing for a change. This is way bigger than Drake. The First Amendment doesn't just protect nice speech, which he doesn't use anyway. It protects inconvenient speech, you know, the kind that embarrasses powerful people. The moment that you ask a court to limit how words can be used, you are admitting that words matter. Okay, well then all of them matter. Oh, including yours. Do you think that courts do VIP passes for free speech? Oh, no, but art is a loophole. Oh, but I meant it metaphorically this time. You either live by free speech or you learn why it exists. Some may refer to that as God's plan, but you might have to be an American to understand that one.
So ultimately, on January 22nd, 2026, Drake spins the block on this lawsuit and files an appeal brief. What that means is he's essentially asking the Second Circuit, which is not the judge, but instead a federal appeals court, to reverse the judge's decision that threw out his lawsuit early. This appeal right here, it's not the court deciding who won the rap battle, but instead the court is going to decide whether the judge was allowed to dismiss Drake's claims before the discovery phase or not. And if you guys weren't up to speed with the millions of videos we've done on this crappy lawsuit already, essentially in a defamation case, if it doesn't get dismissed, the first step towards moving things forward is the discovery phase, where both Drake and the person he's suing, in this case UMG, get to request, internal emails, contracts, marketing records, internal documents, etc., to gather the information they need to really build a proper case with a lot of valid sources. If you guys don't remember Drake's lawsuit, he didn't have any sources to prove the bots, to prove the streaming. It was all based off rumors and his own, feelings of being hurt by the song. He couldn't even show a valid source to say like, hey, look, here's how Drake's numbers have gone down over time, and that proves that it's directly correlated to the song, because ironically, Drake's numbers haven't actually gone down. His new music's not streaming as well, but his old music's doing perfectly fine. But essentially, the judge threw this whole thing out before it could go to that discovery phase. And Drake was requesting some crazy stuff. If you guys don't remember, he was requesting any communication UMG had internally about abuse allegations that Kendrick Lamar faced, and anything UMG knew about Kendrick's kids and Dave Free, and if there's any relation there. I'm guessing Drake was trying to prove, like, hey, look, there was validity to the claims I made in Family Matters when I was saying those kids aren't really Kendrick's. That was true, or at least I thought it was true, and that's why I said it in the song. Maybe he could then spin that to say, like, hey, when I made Family Matters with those accusations, I was stating them as facts, and now I have proof from UMG that those were facts, that the kid isn't really Kendrick's. So if I was stating this stuff as facts, then we gotta assume Kendrick was also stating the allegations he made against me as factual information. I don't see why else he would request in his lawsuit to dig up information about Kendrick's kids that UMG had access to. It's not like he was asking a judge to, go through Kendrick's phone to get, information on his kids and Dave Free's relation. No, he wanted staff at UMG to see what they had to say about Dave Free and Kendrick's kids. It really didn't make sense. So Drake's appeal brief here basically frames 4 different issues. Number 1, did the judge mess up by ruling that the defamatory material, aka the song, the cover art, and the music video, are all non-actionable opinion, meaning you can't sue over it because it was just Kendrick's opinion? Number 2, even if it is Kendrick's opinion, did the judge mess up by ruling it isn't mixed opinion, meaning opinion that implies hidden facts, so it can still be defamatory? Number 3, did the judge mess up by ruling New York's harassment law, Penal Law 240.26, cannot be used by a private person as a civil lawsuit claim? Because if you guys don't remember, Drake also claimed that Not Like Us caused him harassment. Like, if you remember, his house was shot up. He had to move his mother and his son out of Toronto, but the judge was saying you can't sue under New York's harassment law because it would have to be a criminal case. This is a civil lawsuit. And finally, number 4, Drake is asking the appeals court to take a look and question, did the judge mess up by ruling Drake didn't properly plead a claim under New York's consumer law 349, even though he says UMG ran materially misleading consumer-facing behavior? Basically, with the New York consumer law 349 that Drake was suing under, you have to show that the behavior that the person you're suing took misled everyday consumers, and the judge was essentially stating that Drake didn't clearly show that UMG's actions were aimed at everyday consumers. With all the bots and the fake streams, Drake of course argues that UMG did those things to mislead the public. But the judge basically said Drake didn't come with enough proof to show that consumers were actually misled in a concrete way by UMG's behavior. And Drake is now bringing that to the appeals court and saying, the judge didn't look at this situation properly. Like, my claim that UMG misled consumers by putting those fake streams and the payola radio spins on Not Like Us, it's valid. And the judge was wrong to say it's not. The judge
studies rap battles for a living.
So then Drake just, lets the courts know, like, obviously this lawsuit is about UMG publishing and promoting Not Like Us, and that Not Like Us was meant to create the impression, and states it like it's a fact, that Drake is a certified PDF and a quote-unquote predator. His lawsuit says that the accusation made in Not Like Us is the core message of the song. And it's not only shown by the lyrics where Kendrick is insinuating Drake's a PDF, but it also is shown by the cover art, which has all those, S offender pins on Drake's house, all the heavy marketing that UMG did for the song, and of course the music video, which to this day I still don't understand why Drake thinks UMG is responsible for that. Why? Because they released the music video onto streaming platforms? Anyways, the song ended up having listeners publicly claiming that the accusations about Drake being a PDF were backed by evidence, all the rumors online, and the public said they would never have known about Drake's alleged behavior if the song had not exposed it. Basically, without people hearing Not Like Us, they would have never went digging down the rabbit hole. Some people even went as far as to say that Drake should be investigated, arrested, or imprisoned, including demands that law enforcement agencies should step in. Or even worse, the Child Protective Services, they should be investigating Drake. That's what people were saying online after Not Like Us.
It's probably a minor.
Drake was wildly compared online to real-world figures who have been charged with or convicted of serious S crimes, placing him in the same category in the public mind. The Epstein stuff was the stuff I expected. Remember, Drake rapped that. Drake tells the court that this reaction to Not Like Us spread rapidly and predictably led to vigilante behavior, creating serious and immediate safety risks. Just 3 days after the song and the cover art were released, there were armed attackers that arrived at the home depicted in the cover art of Not Like Us, while Drake was inside, which is kind of a crazy coincidence. I think it has nothing to do with the beef or with Not Like Us, but Kendrick puts Drake's home on that album cover with all the S offender pins. 3 days later, Drake's home is shot up. Very crazy coincidence. During this attack, one of the gunmen shot Drake's security guard who required emergency surgery to survive. And in the days that followed, there were additional attempts to break into Drake's property, including one individual digging under the fence while shouting threats, and another physically fighting Drake's security staff. As a result of these events, Drake removed his son from school and relocated his son and the child's mother away from Toronto for their safety. Drake has since been forced to maintain heightened security on an ongoing basis. Now, this stuff to me is baseless because, yeah, you could say your safety was threatened after this rap battle by crazy fans or whoever you want to blame it on, but it's again, you willingly participated in this battle. The same thing could have happened to Kendrick. Kendrick was not able to actually sleep in Toronto when he performed there on tour. He had 2 shows, 2 different nights in Toronto. He allegedly had to fly to New York to sleep there in between the shows. And Drake's goon, Top 5, was literally at the hotel that he thought Kendrick was staying at to look for him. The whole time Top 5's been out of jail, he's been talking about, I'm Drake's shooter, I'm looking for Kendrick, Kendrick's not safe in Toronto. So you want to talk about feeling harassed or feeling like your safety was compromised because of the music that came out of this battle? I mean, Kendrick Lamar suffered that same fate. But Drake says, this isn't about Kendrick Lamar. It's that despite that UMG knew the accusations in Not Like Us were false, and they were aware of the escalating threats to Drake's safety and his family, UMG still continued an aggressive campaign to push the song to the widest possible audience, which, yes, they're a record label, that's what they're supposed to do.
Lock off every door in the Noble Hotel. Not even cut everything off. Mom bought everything. He's a bitch.
Yeah, you're scared of Kendrick?
Tell him come to town. Swiss cheese.
What happened if he comes to Toronto?
I'll get the low, put on my Nike Tech Black. So why'd you get us a driver? Put the window down, it is what it is, get some fresh air.
Where's Drive-By King? Drive-By King.
Yo, where's Drive-By King?
So Drake is really upset, alright? He says UMG allowed and encouraged the song to be spread through, viral TikTok videos and all that stuff. They amplified the song through playlists, algorithms, promotional playlists designed to maximize the exposure of the song. And this is what's interesting. They did not issue any disclaimer that clarified that the accusations in the song were fictional, exaggerated, or part of a rap battle. So Drake is expecting that UMG should have put a disclaimer on Not Like Us that all the accusations made in the song were just part of the rap battle. Imagine like how delusional Drake needs to be after, this being his third public rap battle in the mainstream light, thinking that we now need censor tags or disclaimer tags on diss songs before we release them to say, hey, by the way, guys, what you're about to listen to is just part of this theatrical fun of a rap battle.
I study rap battles for a living.
But Drake is basically stating here, like, no, instead of putting that disclaimer tag on the song, UMG's actions, like to promote the song and amplify it, ensured that the PDF accusations made against Drake continued circulating long after the song had initially been released. And he said with every republication of the song, like every new time, it was packaged, let's say in the music video or the Grammys or the Super Bowl performance, it just kept growing more and more legs, right? He said the music video dramatically expanded the reach of the song. I mean, there's really a whole section of this appeal where he's crying at how successful the song got after the music video, saying that it was on YouTube's weekly music video chart for more than a month. And he alleges that viewers reacted as if the video showed that Kendrick Lamar possessed real knowledge about Drake's alleged criminal behavior. I'm assuming he's referring to all the shipping containers in the music video, or maybe the hopscotch, Kendrick doing hopscotch, implying that, Drake likes those children activities. Now, Drake also says UMG took unusual steps to maximize the song's circulation. The appeal states that UMG whitelisted the song on platforms like YouTube and Twitch, basically meaning creators were able to replay and repost the song without triggering standard copyright enforcement. And obviously this got the song to spread farther and wider, right? Because more reactors were reacting to it because they would actually get paid to do so. I thought this was a revolutionary step to actually merging and blending record labels and artists and reactors, people who, really do push the song. I've said before, I think, reactors and streamers in general, they're kind of like the modern day mixtape DJ or tastemaker at this point. So to take the revolutionary step of saying, hey, let's benefit each other, right? Like you give me promotion by reacting to my song and I give you money by letting you actually react to it without any copyrights. Yeah, Drake was trying to shut all that down. He said it hurt him.
The biggest waste of my God. I can't fake it. I can't fake it. That was ass.
He also alleges that UMG's promotion of Not Like Us far exceeded their promotion of other songs released during that same rap battle. Now, why Drake's trying to use this argument is obviously because the judge had said you have to look at the entire context of the other diss tracks for the ruling of whether or not Not Like Us was defamation, right? When you look at it in the scope of, okay, well, Drake was willingly participating in this battle and also suggested that Kendrick talk about him liking young girls in a separate diss track. Yeah, maybe Not Like Us is not defamatory considering the situation that was going down. Drake wants to show the appeals court like, hey, look, yes, there was a rap battle going on. I was an active participant in it, but this is not about me and Kendrick. This is about UMG taking this one song that was falsely portraying me as a PDF and, blowing this song up, using tons of money to make this song a massive global hit. And if anyone knows how the machine, goes behind a song and pushes it to maximum degrees artificially, it's Drake, right? There's no denying he's had tons of songs do crazy streaming numbers. He knows how this machine works.
How Drake telling y'all other niggas bot? Y'all trying to get at Drake because y'all think he bot? Come on, man.
But the thing that he's missing here is that you can sometimes tell when a song is an organic hit as well, right? And those are the ones you want to invest into. I think even when the average person looks at all the diss records that were released in the Drake and Kendrick beef, it's a no-brainer that UMG put the marketing budget behind Not Like Us because that was the obvious biggest hit from that whole battle. And the first day, the first week numbers reflected that. So obviously, once the song is a hit organically, UMG is going to put all their resources into making it an even bigger hit. It's a no-brainer. He says in his lawsuit, even the second most popular song from the battle reached only a small fraction of the audience that Not Like Us had attained. And Drake alleged that this disproportional promotion from UMG shows that they had an active role in spreading the PDF accusations. But it wasn't just that they spread these accusations, it was that this whole thing stretched far beyond hip-hop audiences, right? Drake had alleged that UMG republished a song to audiences who would have no reason to understand it as part of a rap battle. You gotta remember, part of the reason why the judge threw out the case to begin with is because she said the reasonable listener would not view Not Like Us as a fact, because they would judge it in the context of the rap battle and they would know, okay, it was Kendrick's job essentially to clown Drake as much as possible. We're not going to look at this like, he's 100% telling the truth with what he's saying. But Drake is saying, no. The way UMG ended up pushing this song to the mainstream, playing it, at the Democratic National Convention, the Grammy Awards, the Super Bowl, this was far beyond a rap battle in terms of who the average listener was for this song. The song came out in the spring. By the time the winter rolled around, it was like half the world had already heard the song, and probably 90% of those people didn't even know a battle took place. They just knew about this track that was calling Drake a PDF. The thing that you got to ask yourself though is, does Drake really want, and did he really expect UMG to be like, Kendrick Lamar, we're not allowing you to play this song that you created in this rap battle on any big stage going forward? Like, does that logically make sense to you? Like, this song hurt Drake's feelings and makes him look bad, so you're not allowed to play this anymore? If a judge thought that was reasonable, thought that was okay, think about the standard that would set, right? And why that's dangerous. That would mean all artists going forward in the future would be censored with how far they could actually take their music if another artist deems that their music defames them.
Gotta ask, what do you think about Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, getting Record of the Year?
I don't care nothing about that.
No,
that ain't got nothing to do with me. All the best to him, man.
Okay, cool.
I don't do that bullshit.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Now here's where it gets interesting. Drake tries to poke holes in the judge's decision in that Not Like Us was not defamatory because it was non-actionable opinion. Basically, she was saying the lyrics in the song were Kendrick's opinions, and in the proper context, they couldn't be perceived as factual, therefore they can't be defamation. On Drake's end, he's saying that the court assumes that all accusations made in diss songs are automatically understood as exaggerated or fictional, but he argues that this assumption is legally incorrect. Drake argues that the court relied on a generalized view of rap battles instead of analyzing the specific statements at issue. Drake is saying Kendrick threw criminal accusations that were false against him, and he's saying the judge effectively created a rule that diss tracks cannot be defamatory as a matter of law, basically treating the rap battle context as automatically stripping the statements made in the diss songs of any factual meaning. And he says this approach is inconsistent with defamation law. No category of speech, let alone rap battles, are automatically exempt from defamation scrutiny. You got to analyze the specific words, the imagery, and the overall message of the statements that are at issue. And Drake argues that the trial court skipped this required analysis by assuming that diss tracks are inherently exaggerated and not meant to be taken seriously. And he's telling the appeals court that this assumption is legally incorrect. In his appeal, he also says that the trial court had improperly assumed that all listeners were familiar with rap battles. But like we said before, UMG had republished the song to audiences who had no reason to interpret the song as competitive exaggeration. Once you're hearing the song at, soccer games or political events or the Super Bowl, Drake argues that audiences in those contexts would reasonably understand that the accusations in Not Like Us were factual claims, and the trial court, the judge, had failed to analyze how these audiences would interpret the lyrics and the statements made in Not Like Us. The judge
studies rap battles for a living.
And then here's where the irony kicks in. You know how we've been saying that this lawsuit, Drake, using rap lyrics as a way to build a defamation case kind of creates a dangerous precedent? Well, him in his own lawsuit, he's saying that the judge's decision to throw out the lawsuit on the premise that it was a rap battle and lyrics should be protected, he says that's a dangerous rule that the judge created. Basically, he's arguing that the judge's reasoning would effectively allow false accusations of serious crimes to be shielded by artistic labels. This would remove legal protection for individuals falsely accused through wildly distributed media. And Drake argues that defamation law does not support such a rule, that people can be protected by saying, oh, this was just art, this was just a song. And in this appeal, it states that adopting this type of approach that the judge took, where she tossed out the lawsuit because she said it's just music, it's just exaggeration, it's not defamation, it's not stated as fact, this approach would conflict with the already established precedent. So on our side and on the judge's side, we're all saying like, hey, Drake, you're setting a really dangerous standard by trying to sue over rap lyrics. But on Drake's side, he's saying, no, the judge throwing out this case is setting a really dangerous standard because she's showing all people in the future that they can be defamed, they could be accused of horrible crimes so long as the accusation stems from a song or a piece of media or a piece of art, because those things are protected and they're not viewed as factual information. It's crazy to me how he's spinning this whole thing. He's got to be digging into his pockets like crazy for these lawyers right now. Now, the judge obviously also dismissed the deceptive business practices claim, right? The New York General Business Law 349 that we spoke about earlier. This was used by Drake to basically accuse UMG of using bots and payola and fake streams on Not Like Us to artificially boost the popularity of it. Basically, that New York Law 349, it prohibits deceptive acts or practices in the conduct of business, and it applies to conduct that is consumer oriented and misleading in a material way. Basically, the business they were doing, distributing the song, getting it on playlists, and as Drake is accusing them of, putting fake streams on the music, that is consumer oriented, right? Because you have a consumer that is obviously consuming music off these streaming platforms, but they're also consuming the data, the statistics, right? You can go on and see how a song is performing. So you're misleading the consumer by making them think the song is a lot more popular than it actually is, and that might incentivize them to want to go and listen to it further. I just find it so ironic to this day that that song, Not Like Us, actually beat out the record that Drake was holding for like 4 or 5 years before that for the rap song to have the most amount of streams in a single day. It had like 12 million streams in one day. And I think, we could be real at this point. Not Like Us is definitely the biggest hip-hop hit of the 2020s decade so far, right? Was there even a bigger rap hit in the 2010s than Not Like Us? That might be a question we might be asking ourselves in like 10 years from now.
Kendrick just opened his mouth, and I'm about to put my dick in it right now. Someone go hand him a Grammy right now.
But yeah, anyways, back to this being a shady business practice. Drake was just basically saying that, the song was marketed and promoted to millions of consumers. Therefore, this satisfies the requirement that the business conduct UMG used was consumer oriented, which is essentially what Drake needed to show for his deceptive business practices claim to not be dismissed. Because what's interesting about the whole botting thing, right, is that Spotify basically has like a pool of money from all the streams that every single song on the platform gets, and how they pay out different artists is not like, okay, your song got 1 million plays and we pay out like $30 for every 1 million plays. No, that's not how they do it. They basically pool all the streams together, and let's say Drake had 1 billion streams and all the artists combined on the entire platform had like 10 billion streams. That means Drake gets 10% of the pie. So if you start artificially boosting the numbers of your song, that means you're faking the streams and also faking the actual percentage of the pie of total amount of streams that you would have on Spotify. Therefore, you would get a higher payout, and other individuals, other artists would get less. That might have been a little complicated to follow, but essentially what I believe the judge was trying to say was that the whole, faking streams thing, if UMG really did that, that would only be misleading and deceptive to Drake, because obviously, again, that would fake Kendrick's numbers, meaning he would get a bigger slice of the pie that he wouldn't deserve, and that would essentially harm Drake, right? Or I could be wrong, and the whole, misleading thing comes down to the fact that, like, if Drake saw these massive numbers for Not Like Us, it would mislead him, because the judge was saying the accusations Drake made about, UMG using these deceptive business practices, it wasn't misleading towards the public consumer. Drake is making the argument that no, it wasn't just misleading to him as an artist, but it was misleading to all the people who are on Spotify actually listening to music. Drake argues that UMG promoted the song in a way that presented the accusations within the lyrics as truthful or fact-based, and because of that, consumers were led to believe the accusations in Not Like Us were real, and this misrepresentation influenced how consumers actually engaged with the song. I don't see how UMG deceived the consumers or the listeners of the record to, think that everything in it was factual. If you guys can, chalk up a good reason, let me know in the comments. So ultimately, Drake argues that the judge wrongly treated that the harm he received from the song as speculative or disconnected. Like the hate he got online, the shootings at his house, that had nothing to do necessarily with Not Like Us directly. But Drake is telling the appeals court now that in this typical process, he doesn't have to prove anything yet. He just has to show or allege a causal chain, a chain of events. And he did allege a clear sequence. Number 1, UMG released and aggressively promoted the material. Number 2, the accusations spread wildly. Then people believed the accusations as real, and then Drake suffered reputational, safety, and personal harm. Drake also argues that the judge wrongly minimized or ignored the harm that he alleged. He gave concrete harms such as increasing security needs, disruption to his family life, emotional distress, and the long-term safety concerns, having to move his baby mama and his kid out of Toronto, right? He argues that none of this is needed to be proven yet. It just needed to be brought forth for the case to keep going, right? For him to have some sort of validity for the judge to say, all right, let's open this can of worms up. And another thing that's interesting is that Drake was arguing that a lot of the key, questions that the judge was answering when she dismissed the whole case, he says that it actually should have been a jury that should have been answering these questions. Like, how the average everyday consumer understood the statements made in Not Like Us, whether there was real harm caused to Drake, whether the, conduct that UMG took in their business practices when they promoted this song, was that misleading or was it not? He said that's not a thing that a judge should decide at the motion to dismiss stage. These are questions for a jury once the case actually goes to trial. Because obviously this was UMG trying to fight to have this case dismissed, right? That's how a defamation case goes. And ultimately what Drake is asking for at this point is he's not asking to win the case outright. He's not asking for a judgment to be made by this appeals court. He's just asking for the dismissal to be reversed, all of his claims to be reinstated, and for the case to go back to the trial court for discovery and further proceedings. Now, again, like we said before, if this thing does go to discovery, let alone to trial, A, it sets a really scary precedent, and B, it's going to be interesting to see what Drake, really digs up in that excavation, as he said in the hard part, SHIT, right? He's asking for info on Kendrick's kids, on the abuse history that Kendrick has faced, on Dave Free. If the appeals court decides, all right, Drake, you know what? Here's a second chance. The judge made a wrong call. You can go ahead and take this thing to court and go dig through those UMG papers and find any dirt, any secret info, any red button on Kendrick Lamar that your heart desires. That'll be an interesting sight to see. And in the meantime, I really wonder if he's just delaying this Iceman project for, some sort of outcome to come from this lawsuit. This lawsuit could drag on for years. If they let this thing go to trial, this could be a half a decade of a process. And obviously Drake's not going to wait that long to drop new music, but if the new music relies on the narrative Drake is trying to paint, that, he was purposely sabotaged by puppets of the label so that the label wouldn't have to pay him, hundreds of millions of dollars for a new contract, and that he recouped his $400 million contract so quickly that the label didn't know what to do. They were in shambles, so they concocted this whole big plan to take down this master manipulator of the industry. I get disgusted just thinking of these conspiracies. It's really insane that Drake turned his whole fan base into, just simple people who like, party music or romance music, R&B music, whatever the case is, to now these wild nutcase conspiracy theorists who think that, Drake is this higher power that is about to expose the entire industry and that everyone wants to take down because he's just too threatening. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Drake is about to take over the world. So let me know what you guys think. Special shout out and thank you to Playful again for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check them out if you want to earn cash just by playing mobile games. Links in the description or scan the QR code right here. And I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.